Shalom again, everybody. Ariel Tzadok here from the KosherTorah School, found online at www.koshertorah.com, bringing to you today's daily lesson in the Sefer Yetzirah. This is lesson 43 in our series, and again, we are covering chapter 2, Mishnah 4, the 231 gates, and of course, we dedicate these classes to the safety, the health, the well-being, and prosperity of everybody today who is facing the obstacles and tribulations of our present circumstances, with the hope that we might be able to give you just a little bit of a push to look for that opportunity in your obstacles to overcome them as it's supposed to be. But anyway, in our previous class, I introduced to you the 231 gates, which are supposedly 231 letters. But you got to understand the nature and means of letters. We discussed a whole bunch of these combinations yesterday. And in today's little lesson here, I'm going to jump into my big 40-hour class that I've been talking about a lot and give you an exercise from that series. Actually, it's the exercise number 1. And there it is, right there. There is a PDF version of it right here. It's actually going to be 2 pages because it'll have both, and you'll look in the comments here or whatever the text that'll give you the link for the online PDF to have access to this. But let me explain to you what it is and then why it is. You see, again, please remember something. Everything has a meaning and a purpose. This is a very, very important point when it comes to understanding these types of techniques and practices. So, when we read the Bible and God in the Torah commands us to do certain things, well, I mean, the common sense stuff like don't kill, don't steal, don't commit adultery, I mean, yeah, we get that, don't we? At least I hope we do. But then, as we know, there are commandments in the Torah which literally you scratch your head and say, what the heck, that doesn't make any sense, such as the laws of the sacrifice of the para aduma, the red heifer. The Hebrew word for this is a hok, which means an ununderstandable law. Well, with regards to the commandments that God gives us and is the foundation of our Orthodox Jewish practice of religion, well, we follow the directions of our sages and the interpretations thereof, and that defines the structure of our religion. All well and good, but that's not this. Please understand. If anything, what we have here, all right, remember, the Sefer Yetzirah is in legend, attributed to the biblical patriarch Abraham. You'll even see a reference to that at the end of the book. Other legends will associate the great Tana, the great Talmudic Mishnaic sage, Rabbi Akiva, with the book. All well and good, very nice. The book most likely has absolutely no connection to the biblical Abraham historically. And the connection actually comes from a very curious verse in the Bible, the Torah, wherein which it says Abraham left Haran, and it says it took all the souls that he made there in Haran. How does he make souls? They say, he must have used the Sefer Yetzirah and created things. That's how the verse is interpreted and the association made. It's a lovely metaphorical, symbolic teaching. It's ethical in nature, but not necessarily historical. Don't confuse things. When it comes to this type of material, remember, we are not dealing with revelations from God. Nowhere does the Sefer Yetzirah say, thus saith the Lord. Nowhere does the text say, thus reveals Eliyahu. We don't even know, actually, who put the text in its present form. But we obviously know from where it comes from because of the nature of its teaching. Now, remember, I've taught you, this is a universal text. Obviously, or let me rephrase that, it's a Jewish text with universal teachings. So it's absolutely applicable to everybody, even though this is its context. Now, this specific exercise that we have here is a universal psychological mind meditative tool. That's what it's all about. So I'm going to explain it to you, but you need to understand why we're doing this in the first place. And don't fall back and say, well, it's magic or God said so. Forget all that nonsense. What we're dealing with here is an exploration and a discovery of the authentic and actual powers of the human mind. And that's where we need to focus. When we're talking about creating golems and stuff like that this book talks about, and now we're actually getting into, if you will, techniques, well, I don't think you're going to be starting to create golems tomorrow. But at least I want you to understand how it's even possible for something as absolutely, fantastic like that could ever possibly happen. Most rationalists, certainly secularists, will say, it's all symbolic legends, it's all a bunch of nonsense. Well, something, a lot of those secular rationalists have a very narrow understanding of things, and they can't handle the realities of life, which they themselves often experience, which are outside of their limited mind scope. So how do we address that? How do we address our little narrow-mindedness? This is the exercise. This is an exercise in the discipline of mind, in the focus of attention, and in control. Like I said in our previous class, the technique here, all right, this is the big version of it that you'll see in the PDF. This is on page 2 of that PDF. All the letters of the, in quote, 231 gates. When you look at the letters, there's actually not 231, there's double that, if you will. You take all the alphabet of 22 letters, and you have to combine, as we will see in our next Mishnah, every letter with every other letter, and a combination. How many combinations are there? How do we do that? Well, you'd be surprised. I am giving you one form of how this is done, but there are multiple forms of how this is done. So, for example, how do we combine the individual letters? Well, let me give you an example from a parallel teaching. Many of you might be familiar with 3 very famous psukim, verses, found in the book of Exodus, each which have 72 letters apiece. And these 3 verses in the Bible, it speaks about the pillar of fire that was behind the Israelite camp that went and then stood between them and the Egyptians, and then how God parted the sea, etc. Well, these curious 3 verses, the first one, is written straight, if you will, from in Hebrew right to left. The second one is written in reverse, from left to right. And then the third is written from right to left. This creates this movement, back and forth kind of thing. The Greeks call this blumastraphon. It was apparently a common technique for them. And then you would take the letters of each of these 72 triplets, and that forms 72 triads, and that is called the 72 triad name of God. Well, that's only one form of the name. I have those 3 verses, if you remember, all right? Straight, back, straight. What would happen if I wrote them differently? Instead of straight, back, straight, maybe I should write it back, straight, back. Or how about straight, straight, back? Or back, back, straight. I have the verses 1, 2, 3. Maybe I'll reverse the order, make it 1, 3, 2, or 3, 2, 1. I can make all kinds of combinations of these letters. The Abulafian technique was based upon this. And he was able to work with all these combinations and recitations, and it enabled him to have profound insight, discovery, and revelation of one's own inner discipline and self. Well, that's exactly what we're seeking to do here. Remember, Abulafia loved the Sefer Yetzirah. He thought it was the greatest thing in the world. Right next to Maimonides is Guide to the Perplexed. The Guide to the Perplexed, many people think, is this rationalistic book which contradicts the spirit of mysticism. Many rabbis of the Ashkenazi orientation at the time even wanted it burned because they considered it so controversial. Certain groups to this day still don't study it. Hey, what could I say? As they say, you'll cut your nose to spite your face. The Guide to the Perplexed, of which we have classes, even one you look down in our little notes here. Oh, no, let me take that back. That's a class, the Rabbi Avraham ben Rambam, his class on solitude meditation. That's in the notes. Maimonides' stuff, that's already, you got to go to my course page. But anyway, the point is that when we practice certain techniques, it has a biological and psychological effect upon the brain. And that is what we're trying to accomplish here. So again, here are the letters, all right? You can count them out. It's 22 times 22 letters. Each letter has what we call a base vowel. We all know base vowels from our English, A, E, I, O, U. Well, in Hebrew, they are A, I, O, U. A, kamatz, A, tsere, I, chirik, O, cholam, and U, shuruk. Well, each letter has a vowel which is unique to it. What are those? What's the secret? There's no secret. What do you think the base vowel of Aleph is? Oh, how about the first vowel of the word Aleph? Ah. So Aleph is ah. Gee, what would be the first letter of the first vowel of the letter Bet? Be, be, etc. Be. How about Gimel? I, gi. All right. Da, let, hey, waw, zayin, het, tet, yod. Oh. Okay, there you go. And nun, of course, with the kubutsu or the shuruk, if you will. Those are the sounds. So each letter is pronounced with its sound. And you go through the entire alphabet, line by line, reciting its letters. A, be, gi, da, he, wa, za, he, te, yo, ka, la, me, nu, sa, a, pe, za, ko, re, shi, ta. That's line 1. And you go as fast as you can without making mistakes. And as you're able to do this and discipline yourself in doing it, right, and you go faster and faster and faster, you will find that your mind, A, is able to do it. You're disciplining yourself. And B, this becomes like an extended long mantra in which the sounds and the letters start to combine in your head all by yourself. And you start saying, okay, stop. Abegida hewaza heteyo. All right, what am I saying here? Oh, maybe I can rearrange a letter here and there and put things together with different vowels. And your mind is going to take on a life of its own. In the Jungian term, we call that your active imagination. Abulafia would say you're connecting into the sechel hapoal, or your active intelligence. Jung might refer to that as the collective consciousness, or a higher mode and train of thought. So you see, this is the point of this meditation. Before we get to the next Mishnah, where we start to combine letters with one another, Aleph with Yod, Aleph with Hey, Aleph with Vav, and the Aleph with the final Hey, and we're playing with all the different permutations and all the like. All right, we start with this step 1. And as we do it faster and faster, your mind, A, is going to become sharp, because this is not an easy task. Even for those of us who actually know Hebrew and can speak Hebrew, you try to go through all the letters and keep it in your head in the right order. Boom, 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 boom. That's what the technique is. Okay? No, it's not magic. I do not anticipate that angels are going to appear in front of you, or little gray guys on the other side with their little ray guns. No, if you start seeing those, your imagination's a little bit too active. Just chill out a bit. But as you resonate these sounds, remember they must be recited aloud. You can apply to it any kind of a chant, a tune. If you have a favorite song that you like the beat, bum, 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 do it. All right? Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey? No. Abegida, He, Wazaheteyo. All right? And you just bum, 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 bum. Let it come out. Let it be natural in your own flow. As you will do this, you get in touch with your own inner flow, and you're projecting it through this vessel. Remember we talked about the energy of the Blima Sefirot? That's what we're trying to tap into, but you're not going to tap into it raw. It needs to be put into the vessel. This is the primary vessel. This is what we start with. That's why I call this exercise number 1. So there's no real technique or halacha laws of how to do this. You can do part of the entire block wall, if you will, or you could do the whole thing. You can do it by day. You can do it by night. You can do it short. You can do it long. You can do it for whatever and whatever. Remember, like I said, this is not the law from Moses from Sinai that we have a thus saith the Lord here, that we have to just follow orders. There's no orders here. That's the actual blessing of the flow, going with the flow. As you're projecting your thoughts and sounds to keep focused on the order where you're at, your mind is naturally going to start to drift. It's going to float. It's going to, like a boat on the ocean, rock. And you're going to move from letter to letter, and your mind is going to start to activate. And let it go. When should you start? Whenever you want. Where should you start? Normally, you start on the first line, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey. But what happens if you're in a different place? Maybe you want to start with the letter Bet or Gimel or Dalet or Hey. Maybe as an experiment, you might want to choose to start with the line that has the beginning letter of the sound or letter of your personal name. So let's say, for example, your name is David. Maybe you'd want to start with the letter or the line that begins with the letter Dalet. Maybe your name is Yaakov. Maybe you'd want to start at the letter Yod. Maybe your name is Sarah. Then you would start with the Shin, or Rivka with the Resh. And then you can go through the order over and over again. Yes, men, women, we can all do this. There's no difference here. Jewish, non-Jewish, there's no difference here. As long as you have a human mind and a human brain and a human soul, you're part of the collective whole with all of us humans. Well, then this is for you. So there it is. A simple, straightforward technique of how to do this. And as you proceed, and as you become familiar with letters and combinations of letters and your active imagination, or your sechel poel, depending if you want to look at it from a psychological or a Kabbalistic point of view, is going to activate, and you will look at everything around you as a code of letters. Many of you might be familiar with the famous movie The Matrix that starred Keanu Reeves as the character Neo. Well, if you remember the final scene of the movie, after he awoken from supposedly dying, all he saw instead of was the delusion of the computer program, he saw the computer codes going up and down with the letters. Well, if you perform this kind of function, this kind of meditation, you won't actually see letters out with your physical eyes, but you'll sense that everything is really just a combination of different letters, a code in creation. And as you look at everything, for example, I look out from my desk right now, I can see my computer underneath my phone. I can see my wall. I can see my lamp. I can see everything. And as I gaze upon it and I look at its different letters and its combinations, ideas, thoughts, insights, revelations come. This is how we jumpstart, kickstart the system. So take this practice, work with it. For how long? However long you need. You can use it for a day, a week, a month, a year, or a lifetime. See where it takes you. Pay attention to your own thoughts. Write down things in a spiritual journal if you need to. It's a good idea. Check out our other, more advanced courses that we have online if you're interested. And I will see you in our next class. We'll take the next step. Ariel Bar Tzadok, KosherTorah School, KosherTorah.com. See you all online. Shalom.